A much more successful attempt was the Striga episode. I think, Kelly, this was the third episode, I believe. What is this one called?
Episode 3, Betrayer Moon.
Betrayer Moon. I don't even know what that means.
We could just run through all the names so you can get a good laugh out of all of them for a few minutes if you really want to.
Okay, what's the second one? So I know the name of the short story for the Striga episode in the book is just called The Witcher. So
might be a good introductory episode.
There's a clue that
lays it all down who the Witcher is.
Yeah, and what he's all
about.
What
he does.
Yeah, that was your first fucking clue to use The Witcher as your introductory episode. But what was the name of the second episode?
Second episode was called Four Marks, based on The Edge of the World.
Yes, The Edge of the World. I remember the name of that story too. That was the episode with the Sylvan Torque. Where they that's where the toss a coin to your Witcher song comes
Torque
into.
totally sounds like an American Gladiators character.
I love I don't really want to spend time on that episode because it's not quite as consequential as some of the others, but I will say that I love that short story, and the character of Torque in the book was awesome. Like, his relationship with Geralt was great because they are both just huge, massive dicks to each other. They are just such. So it's like Geralt's hired to go find out.
He's a ball buster.
Well, it's more than just ball buster. They're just like bullies to one another. Like, Geralt spits in his ear at one point, and like they're just huge dicks to each other. And Torque is just like a highly unlikable creature. But Geralt recognizes his sentience and all of that. He's not going to kill him or anything. And Torque isn't an evil monster. He just wants humans to stay away. So when in the books, when Geralt and Jaskier are captured, they're actually rescued by Filavandrel wants to kill him. And Torque is desperately trying to talk him out of killing him because he's like, oh, he's actually a good guy. Don't kill him, blah, blah, blah. There's actually like some elven spirit that shows up or whatever and says, yeah, don't kill this dude, which is pretty interesting. I understand why they didn't use the elven spirit Deus Ex Machina in the show. It's a little weird, but whatever. But at the end of that short story, though, like Geralt and Jaskier and Torque are all sitting around a campfire, just palling around, having fun. Like, they end up like just enjoying each other's company and being good friends.
That would have been cool.
It's super cool. It's super fun. The books. He's even referenced in The Witcher 3. They're talking about a Sylvan at some point, and Geralt's like, "Yeah, I know one named Torque." Blah blah blah. He just mentions him. Whatever. It's really cool. Like, Torque is a fun character, and they only touched on a little bit of him, like in their introduction. It was a very weird moment where. After Torque slings Dandelion with the marble thing, and then he's tussling on the ground with Geralt. Like, Geralt just like goes, "You're a dick with balls." I was like, whoa. That's
in the book?
Yeah, he doesn't say it in the book, he said it in the show. I was like, that's weird. He goes, "You're a dick with balls." That was what before he's like, "Did your mom fuck a snowman?" or something like that. Like they interjected a little bit of how their characters interact in the books. Yeah. But it's just a really random, weird moment in the show where it's like, oh, that's kind of out of character for Geralt.
I felt when I was watching the show that was just like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird.
It is. It's like, again, you're doing the Four Marks. Isn't that the same episode of the Four Marks? You're doing all that stuff. You're in that world. You're there. There's heavy emotional stakes going on. She's gonna kill herself, and then you're in this lighthearted, essentially,
it's like a buddy cop romp
because the point of that episode, as far in Geralt's story, is that's kind of where he gets with Jaskier, and Jaskier writes the song with the story that makes him kind of famous.
Yeah,
that's kind of the point of it. It's really weird, that lighthearted kind of like adventure romp, even though there are dangerous stakes and stuff in it, juxtaposed against the fucking really heavy Yennefer shit.
So this also is the episode where it introduces Yennefer's origin story, which I don't believe is anything that was actually ever really fully explored in the books. Maybe I'm just something that's I'm not remembering, but I don't believe it is. And this is, again, something that takes place like 200 or 300 years in the past. So no indication at all that you're going that far back.
Yeah, you're just cutting between them like it's like meantime back at the ranch 200 years ago.
So with Yennefer, she makes her on-screen debut as a gnarl-jawed hunchback that's working, I guess, as like a farmhand or something on her father's farm, or doing something weird. I don't quite know.
I think she's basically just like
she's just there,
Hunchback of Notre Dame kind of deal, just the butt of
the
slings and
she
arrows.
Starts off getting bullied and in a panic uses some some latent magic abilities to teleport herself to a cave where Istrid, another sorcerer from Artusa, I always want to say Artusa, but I don't think it's Latin, but
this is the dude with the contacts.
I mean, everybody in this show has contacts, but it's the black dude, the young black dude. So after
that character, man, I didn't know. He seemed cool, but he seemed completely superfluous. I was just like, what are you even doing here?
Doesn't, well, okay, we could talk about that in just a little bit because there's an important point to that.
Yeah.
So she uses this ability. She's found out by, I forget her name. She's the headmistress, basically, of this magical school, who comes and purchases her from her father for 4 marks, which,
Hey, man, I thought there was some good emotional resonance in that storyline. I didn't know that about Yennefer. Having played the games, I just saw her when she's, Yennefer.
So the first appearance of Yennefer in the book is actually in the short story, The Last Wish, which was adapted into one of the episodes in this show that we'll get to a little bit later. But she just shows up hardcore.
Yeah.
Like you don't get that shit. If there is some origin story stuff, it must be explained later in the books through like conversation or
That's
whatever.
what they should have done too, because that way it would be like you'd have this picture of her in your head.
Right. And you would have to square it against where she's coming from.
Find out where she was coming from.
The way that you would any person you would meet.
Yeah,
right?
and it would be there'd be some dramatic shit they could mine there.
Yeah.
Dramatic shit they could mine there. I was looking for a better word than
I like
a better noun than shit. But they could mine that for effect. But instead we get her story, her origin laid out linearly, you know what I mean? For the most part. But completely jacked with regards to its juxtaposition.
It becomes non-sequential for her when she is escorting the woman in that cart. Like everything up until that point for her, I believe, is sequential in her timeline, and then at that point, it starts to jump around. With everybody else.
Okay, maybe you can help me with this because I thought it was the intention of this show. It definitely jumps way forward. You know what I mean? But I thought it was still generally sequential. Like she has experience with the baby, and that's what makes her decide maybe she wants to have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Then
you see her again. The next time you see her again is the Last Wish episode where she's trying to do.
That's what I'm saying though. When she had that cart episode, that's the one with the baby. Yeah, that's how that whole sequence ends.
Yeah, totally.
So up until that point it's sequential, but after that point is when it starts to jump around with everything else.
Oh yeah, just jump way ahead is what you're saying.
Yes, I believe jump ahead.
Yeah, because what I meant is linearly is like when you see her chunks, they don't go back in time usually.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't go to a part before a part you saw earlier. You know what I mean? I don't think. Whereas you definitely do with Geralt.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, you do that with him. I don't think you ever do that with her, and you definitely don't do that with Ciri.
Yeah, Ciri's is linear.
Hers is linear.
I mean, it's hard to use the word linear with regards to the show.
Sequential, rather.
Yeah.
But it's not quite because in that we do jump back in that 7th episode, so it isn't completely sequential for her, I guess.
Or do you jump back to? I can't remember.
That was the retelling of the first episode. The Saka Central.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but anyways, so.
Oh yeah, for Ciri.
The
confuse ourselves here, people.
The origin of Yennefer is actually it's an interesting thing, but again, when it is mashed up with the Edge of the World story with Torque and all that, it's a weird juxtaposition. There was there was a lot of stuff that I didn't get. Like I think last time we had talked about this, you were talking about how you couldn't tell if she was supposed to be good at magic or bad at magic, or like does this headmistress like her? Does she not like her? Like all of that was really confusing.
Ronald Weasley or Harry Potter?
Yeah,
I don't really know.
You don't really know.
You know what I mean?
And like she witnesses her turn the other people into the eels or whatever. And it's a really weird moment because like that's when they start flaring up that toss a coin to your Witcher song and whatnot. So it's like, okay, there's a montage of stuff that's wrapping up the episode. I'm not quite for certain what we're supposed to be seeing here. It looks like
that song is kind of like,
the song is to your Witcher, and it's all bouncy and whatnot. And she's like tossing her eel friends into the water, and she's smiling about it. And I'm like, wait, what is going on here? Like, is she mortified by this? Is she excited by this? Like, is this a good thing or not? Or?
And it was like, I didn't totally know which of her friends became eels.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters.
I mean, you see them later, so you're like, okay, I guess Sabrina.
Wait, you do see them later?
Well, you see the ones from her friend group that actually weren't turned into eels come back later.
Yeah,
you see Sabrina and
Frangilla.
Right. Any names I recognize from the show, from the game, I'd be like, okay, I know she lives.
It's like, I know that one.
She wasn't an eel. Yeah. You know what I mean? But at first, you're like, you see those 3 girls turn into eels, and you're like, well, who was in that group? I didn't, I don't, dude, again, so really convoluted.
Let's talk about the Striga episode. This is the best that this show has to offer right here.
Yeah.
So this episode, Betrayer Moon, I guess is the name.
Betrayer Moon.
It's based off of the short story The Witcher. Now, in the first episode, Geralt is introduced going into the bar, and some dudes just want to fuck him up, and then Renfrey comes in and saves him, and they have some beer or whatever. That's actually not how that story starts off. That is an adaptation of how The Witcher starts off.
Yeah.
He goes into town, he goes into like a tavern, and then some dudes are like fucking with him, and they get into a fight, and Geralt, some spoiler alert, butchers him, basically, like slaughters him, and then he gets arrested for it and taken to King Foltest's court, and then that's how he gets introduced to the dudes that try to hire him to...
Which makes a metric fuck ton of linear sense.
Yeah, and I will say
it shows you that he's badass.
It's
basically how The Mandalorian begins. Yeah. Shows up at a bar, guys fuck with him. He fucking directs guys.
That's why when we first talked about it, I was talking about how about The Mandalorian. I was talking about how that scene has been done so much. It's so many things, and I alluded to we might see it again because I knew that The Witcher starts off that way. They didn't quite do it that way, and I guess a part of that might be that we were talking about screenwriting conventions last time too.
Sure.
And one of them is showing your lead, your character, your protagonist doing something that ingratiates himself to you, that makes you want to root for him or whatnot. And introducing him, killing people at a bar.
Hey, man, it depends, dude. I mean,
depends on what those dudes.
When The Mandalorian fucked those guys up, I was like,
well, he didn't kill any of them, though.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't. Did he?
He fucking cut that guy in half with the door, man. That was one of the most famous shots of the whole season.
I guess I must have forgotten
the Quarren, that's what he's called. They're from Mon Cala, but they're not Mon Calamari. They're Quarren. The Quarren, it tries to run. And he fucking shoots his thing on good as his legs, and then shoots the door, and the door's like, and you see it from the other shot. You see his legs just go. Bloop.
Yeah, I guess I forgot about that. All right, well, maybe I guess you can have your character be a ruthless murderer and still be.
Hey, man, he's not a ruthless murderer. Those guys fucked with him. He's just a badass.
Yeah, I guess. Well, then maybe they could have done that. I feel like they didn't want to do that. I feel like they didn't want to introduce Geralt in that grisly.
They tried to McClunky it.
Well,
it was we can't have our guy. We got to give our McClunky moment now.
But they didn't give him a moment like that in the first episode. What was his save the cat moment?
Who, the Mandalorian?
No, Geralt. In the first episode.
In the very first episode? His save the cat moment probably was going to save the townspeople if we had known the townspeople were in danger. You know what I mean? Again, that's the problem.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying though. So in this episode, it starts off with him in a whorehouse. He just bangs someone and he can't afford the hotel anymore. I guess he spent all his money on the hooker, right? So the hooker just dropped some knowledge that another Witcher had that she had slept with had been around, and he's curious about this and decides that. In order to pay off his bill, he has to leave Roach behind. So in order to pay off his bill,
that's super complicated.
He's gonna go to
the other way was way better.
Yeah, just showing up and then getting arrested. It actually there are some changes that make sense. In the short story, Triss isn't involved. Her character isn't introduced until later. But it makes sense that she would be there because she's a sorcerer and a longtime advisor to King Foltest. So. She would be there.
And that helps, but I think she does anything super consequential.
Well, she's the one. Geralt was kicked out. So first of all, this episode should have been the very first episode because I love how it begins. It starts off with this kid who's gravely wounded.
Yeah, see, that was great.
And he's explaining what a Volkador or Volkadad or something like that.
It was like an X-Files episode.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was
It starts off
from being a
it
werewolf.
starts off
possibly.
showing the problem.
Yeah.
Like, this is the problem. You know, you don't have to wade through a bunch of weird shit and multiple timelines.
Gives you the emotional
try to
stakes.
figure out.
The kid's dad, he's like, ah!
Yeah,
you're like, oh man.
It's like every episode of Star Trek starts off with
totally.
this is the problem.
And then it's like they give you the problem, then boom, space.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this episode did. You have this kid, he's all wounded. His dad is there, like, crying and whatnot. They're trying to, and then like there you see like some dude in the shadows, right? And like he's puffing some smoke, but you can't make him out. And like after this kid like talks about the were creature or whatever, he dies, and the dad's like weeping. And then like out from the shadows steps a different Witcher.
Yeah.
Like and this dude who's like grizzly looking, and he's just smoking this pipe, and he's like 3,000 orens up front. It's like, fuck, that's a lot of money. But they pay it to him, you know? And then it cuts to him going to this, and this is like when you were talking about how Geralt coming out of the swamp looks shitty.
Yeah.
This was both simultaneously a cool shot and a shitty looking shot because he's walking into this cave, and you see the walls come up, but there's like an opening up top. And in the opening, you could see the castle in the distance, and it's night, it's the moon, like the snow is falling. It's a really awesome looking shot, but it looks really, really fake. Like it's like an awesome attempt at a cool shot.
It would have been amazing with Game of Thrones money.
With Game of Thrones money, that would have looked fucking amazing. But
the concept art was probably
it's
amazing.
kind of like that Key and Peele music video where the budget's going down. And then once the budget runs out, it gets super cheap.
Dude, super cheap.
Like, that's kind of what this show kind of seemed like. And maybe that's why it's all the sequences are all fucked up, because they had to muddle in the cheap stuff along with the expensive stuff.
We'll get to the dragon in a little while.
We'll talk about that fucking dragon. But anyways, so this Witcher goes in, and he gets his ass handed to him by the Striga. So when Geralt goes there, you know,
and by that he means he gets made dead.
He gets made dead. And Geralt comes in, and he's like, he examines the body, and like the heart and the liver's gone. And this is where you get Geralt being Geralt. He's doing an investigation. Like, he's an investigator.
Yeah,
that's
man.
what he is. Like, he's a monster slayer and an investigator.
He's a detective.
Yeah.
The thing is, that's where The Witcher is cool. It's basically hard-boiled detective
And I remember
fiction.
you got me into The Witcher because I remember talking to you about, like, man, you know what I really want to see is like a hard-boiled detective story told in like a medieval fantasy setting.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this is, you know?
Yeah, and I remember there was a book when I was in like high school or middle school or something. I read a book called Murder in Cormier. It was basically like a Forgotten Realms book,
Yeah.
you know? But it was their attempt to actually, like, we're going to write like almost Agatha Christie style murder mystery, but we're going to do it in a fantasy setting. And I specifically was like, that is a cool mixture of genres that I want to read.
Yeah.
I read the book. It was cool. It was fine. You know, it wasn't great, but it was cool. But I always thought like that would be really, really cool. And that's one of the
Breaking
things I
news.
loved.
It can be really, really cool.
That's one thing I loved about the game. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because it's like a lot of times you come into a town, there's some shit going on, and you don't know what the deal is, and someone approaches you, and you know, it's like it's very similar to like, I walked into town. And she came in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She had a bag of gold. You know?
Exactly.
It's like, and you know, in the course of doing that, you there's usually two sides or, you know, different factions you have to deal with, and you have to make some choices. Fucking great. You have to solve some mysteries, you know, it's like, so-and-so killed your sister, blah, blah, blah. You know, or your sister was a werewolf. Or whatever.
Exactly.
That's a great thing. It's like
having to figure all of that stuff out, doing like the gritty or watching the gritty detective aspects of it play out. I mean, that's what I liked about that third episode or the second, or maybe it was the third or fourth episode of The Mandalorian, you know, where he goes onto that planet, you know, and all he wants to do is hide out, but he gets hired and whatnot. So he goes in, he's like investigating, you know, where the bandits came from, and he sees the AT-ST and all that sort of stuff. Like, he does a lot of that sort of Witcher type work, you know. It's really cool. Like, I love figuring that stuff out. So
there's a moment where he goes into infrared.
He does have the Witcher vision.
Senses,
he does
just
have the
like
Witcher
from the
vision.
game. We're like, holy shit.
Yeah, he is Space Witcher.
Yeah.
But so in this episode, like, he's doing all this detective work. I love when he goes to Foltest, like so he gets kicked out, right? He goes to the miners who are pissed off, and they just want to overthrow Foltest because Foltest isn't doing anything about this Striga. So there's a reason for that. Spoiler alert, a little bit later on. But Geralt shows up, and they're like, fuck you, Witcher. We've already been screwed by one of you. And he's like, hey, I'll get paid after the job for half the price, blah, blah, blah. But the King's Men shows up. disbands the rebel rabble-rousers or whatever, and then tells the Witcher to get out of here. And they're escorting him out. So it's when he's escorted out when all those dudes drop, and then Triss comes out of the shadows and is like, no, we need you, blah, 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 come with me. And she ends up taking him to have an audience with Foltest. And I actually like that scene a lot.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, where Foltest is, he's like sitting there eating, and he's talking to his advisors, trying to figure out more about the Striga and where it came from and all that. And he's asking about if it has a father or whatever. And like Foltest obviously like twitches about this, and Geralt notices. So after Geralt like starts, he's purposely egging this dude on by like insulting the princess, who he believes is the Striga. Like Foltest tells everybody to get out. They all start walking, and Geralt just shoves them all out the door and locks it in. Just has this one-on-one with Foltest, and he all but pulls it out of him that Foltest is the Striga's father, and his sister is the mother.
That's the thing in the world of The Witcher, and this is something that doesn't really come through in the series at all. You know what I mean? Which is a bummer, but. The Witcher's job, part of what they do is they know all about curses and shit.
Yes.
They know how a werewolf is made, and they know what a Striga is and how it's made, or a
botchling.
Botchling. There we go. There was some other stuff too, like Brexa. They knew about that's their job. They know, like, they can see the signs. They know how to break the curse. They know what works, what doesn't. And that's why you hire them. That's besides all their badass thing, they're actually an expert on, it's like an exterminator if you've got like a griffin or a fucking, vampire, you call a Witcher. And the show never, like, that's really cool,
Yeah.
Because it's also, the thing about the story is it's like, so it takes place in like a fantasy world that's kind of based on, the Dracula, the folklore of Eastern Europe. So it's like, vampires and all the various different types of vampires. And it's a real curse-based.
It's cursed. That's what I was about to say. There's a lot of curses going on in this world. Like, I've never been exposed to the idea of a curse quite like I have been going through this world.
And it's a very specific type of setting. It's similar to like in Dungeons & Dragons in 2nd edition, there was the whole fantasy setting of called Ravenloft. And it was completely set up. It was a little bit more kind of Bram Stoker Dracula, but the same kind of setting as Castlevania.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of vibe, you know what I mean? And they, there's a lot of cool stuff they could have done with that, but they spend kind of more time trying to make like Game of Thrones stuff happen.
Right.
They're trying
to have all the castle intrigue and the geopolitical stuff happening.
Which not that kind of story.
Honestly, so a lot of that stuff comes from the novels. They were trying to weave in that because that involves sorcerers and whatnot. They were trying to give more airtime to the female characters, Yennefer and Ciri. So and they play more prominently in the novels than they do in the short stories.
Sure.
So they were trying to pull in more of that stuff so that they could, I guess, fill that time out and have more, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm like these fucking SJWs.
Yeah, no,
I'm not trying to sound like that.
If you've watched any of our episodes, that's not our bad.
You're right.
But I mean,
but they were trying to.
He's read the books. He's watched the show. Yennefer talks a lot more in the show than she does in those first couple of short stories.
Well, no, that's the funny thing. Like, the novels actually do place a lot more weight on Yennefer and the sorcerers.
The novels, but not the original.
Short stories. So the idea of pulling these in, time periods be damned, is a little jarring. Plus, personally, I never thought that the world of The Witcher was super, even in the books, it's not super interesting geopolitically.
No.
Like, it's not the same as Westeros and all of that. It's definitely different. It's definitely a little less interesting in my book. Like, the most interesting political parts of it is like the Scoia'tael stuff, which, the show doesn't touch at all.
Yeah.
And, honestly, that's probably for the better. There was already too much shit going on to begin with.
Yeah, they that's the thing. And I understand the want to try to recreate what worked. Like, I was reading something recently. It was an article someone had written about movies right now, and it was big blockbusters. And it's like blockbusters these days they're not developed. They're reverse engineered, where they look at something that worked and it's like we'll provide all the same things, in some very vaguely different setting, but all those same things, and that will recreate what worked, and then we'll have success.
Yeah.
You can sense an attempt on some level to reverse engineer a Game of Thrones type thing, but Game of Thrones was his attempt to write a version of the War of the Roses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's not even that, it's pretty naked. It's like the Lannisters and the Lancasters,
and
the Starks are the Yorks.
Yeah.
He barely changed the names. Westeros is basically just England. I mean, it's got the same wall as Hadrian's Wall. I mean, this is a story about a fucking badass with yellow eyes going from town to town fucking shit up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
it's
getting
basically
into adventures. You know what I mean?
For lack of a better term, medieval Batman.
Yeah, I mean, and
this, but that's the cool thing about this episode is that you get that at least,
and you see it work, and you see that's why it works.
He goes into the castle, he's doing all the investigations, like he's looking through all the stuff and smelling the bed, and he's piecing things together. He calls that dude back, interrogating him. He's like, I smelled what you did. He punches him in the fucking face, Like he gets all he extorts the information from him. He's trying to figure out what he said to cast this curse. And after like back and forth, he eventually tells him he bathed in goat's blood until the rooster crowed. He said some Elven speak, and Geralt understood what it meant. And so he knew that meant the only way to reverse this curse was to keep the Striga out of its crypt until sunrise. Yeah. So that's when he rushes over, starts popping those potions because he knows he's gonna have to fucking fight a Striga all night.
So and this is while this episode represented what The Witcher theoretically could be when done really right.
Yeah.
There were problems that I had with it, and a lot of it was because there were other things that this episode had in it. There was Ciri stuff and Yennefer stuff.
The big Yennefer plotline.
Imagine this episode, just for a second. Imagine this episode, just about what we're talking about, only done in the way, say, like an episode of season 3 of True Detective was done. We're not fucking around with anything else. We're just following him.
Now, season 3 of True Detective also had some pretty confusing timeline jumps. Like he was an old man at some points. He was
but that was on purpose because
well, it wasn't. But I mean, so it's a little bit different in that you're still following one person.
Yeah. But he's also got Alzheimer's, so that was part of the.
And a part of
narrative.
it was
they were trying to do to you what you was doing. It was a subjective aspect of the narrative. But okay, just season 1 of True Detective. We won't talk about season 2. Anyway, I'm not even sure there was a season 2. Anyway,
actually, it's really funny because I think season 2 is the only season that doesn't have such drastic timeline jumping in it.
Yeah,
I think because season 1 does too.
Yeah, but in season 1 they made the people look so different. You knew exactly what timeline you were looking at.
Yeah, see? that's the key.
Fucking little details, guys. It works. If I'm looking at a character and then I see another scene and that character is considerably younger
or considerably older, they did a fucking fantastic job with Mahershala Ali looking old.
Yeah,
he looked old.
I know I'm watching him old. My brain's like, okay, we're in a different timeline. Boom, I'm good. I'm there. If they look exactly the same, that's a problem. Especially anyway. But imagine it was just the whole episode was that. And so all the figuring shit out and talking to people, instead of it being 15 minutes of screen time, really. Because I don't know how much time the Geralt section of that episode.
He got more time in that episode, I think, than most others.
He did, but it still wasn't the full episode.
Right. No.
It was significantly truncated.
No, I said right off the top, I wanted this to be Mandalorian style. Just give me Geralt top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean,
if you want Yennefer and Ciri in it, then put them into Geralt's story.
Yeah, I mean, I would have preferred. I mean, if they had to make Ciri and Yennefer, if they felt like this is what the story, we're adapting this.
Yes,
we are adapting this our way, and we think that Yennefer and Ciri are equal parts to this narrative, as important as Geralt. Give it to me in chunks. Give me, because they changed the symbol between every episode. They should just the wolf, and it's all about Geralt for a while, and then it ends, and you know what I mean, and it gets us to the thing, and then we get all about you do it in sets of 3 maybe episodes, and then the final episode is when they all come together. Yeah, and you tie it all together. It's like boom, you get it, great.
Which is funny. I will talk about the last episode in a few minutes here. We're running a bit long, but I like how the last episode, the title card has them all come together, because then I was like, what the fuck is that? What this is all about? They're coming together now, but then when you watch that episode, it's like
nothing comes together. I mean, I guess at least Ciri and Geralt end up in the same place eventually.
Eventually,
but
anyways, I want to finish this Striga episode real quick. The Striga fight was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that was Witcher top to bottom.
It was awesome. It looked awesome.
The
It
looked
fucking
scary.
monster was awesome. The monster was scary. It was shot well. It had really cool use of his abilities.
I loved how they put in how they incorporated the Witcher signs, like using R to break the floor. That was one of the coolest shots.
It was so cool and so unexpected. And I was like, I never did that with R.
I know. That's a great
cool.
idea.
And supposedly, shout out to Henry Cavill from playing the games. He had played the games and he had used the abilities.
Yeah.
And he was like, there needs to be more of this in the show. And they're like, really? And he's like, yeah.
So in the first episode,
just let him write the show.
Really, honestly. So in the first episode, he tries to use Axie on Renfrey and it doesn't work. And I believe he uses R2 on those soldiers.
See, that's the problem. He's got to do it once for it to work, for you to understand what it even is.
Yeah.
The first time he tries it, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So in Star Wars,
so nobody, I'm willing to bet that nobody that has played the games or read the books
or haven't played the games
or haven't have no fucking clue.
Yeah, no idea
that was
what
even
happened.
a thing.
I knew that it failed, but Star Wars is your perfect example here. You see Obi-Wan do it in the first show, so that when Luke tries to do it on Jabba in episode 3 or episode 6 or whateher, you know what I mean? And Jabba's like
whatever,
bitch, you know, you're not.
He starts off failing, which makes you wonder about it, right?
Yeah. So you know exactly what he tried to do, and it didn't work, and you've seen it work, and all the context is there, you know what I mean? He just randomly pulls it out of his pocket. It doesn't work, and you're just like,
what was that?
Yeah.
What did he do? He was like testicles? Was he modeling testicles?
Was he trying to do a Jedi mind trick?
Yeah, at least because even
Star Wars a thing in this environment.
Because that's another thing. Because like his hand signal wasn't really indicative of anything that would make you think he controls someone's mind. Like even if he did, like because in the game in 3 he does the. ASL. He spells Axie with ASL when he does it. So he at least waves his arm, and you get the idea that he's like hypnotizing them or something.
And there's a little bit of like,
and there's like some magic stuff that happens, and like you see it on the people's eyes. They're like, so like, but there is like the way he did it in this. It was like out of the way and kind of weird, and it was like. I don't know if anyone's going to understand what he was trying to do there. But
missed opportunity, and it has to work before it doesn't work.
And yeah, Ard looked cool, even in that episode when he knocked the soldiers back. Definitely used it to awesome effect in this one when he knocked that floor out. He uses Edrin, which I believe is the spell that he used to lock the creature into place, so that it wouldn't escape. And then when he crawls in the sarcophagus, he uses it to seal that too. So like the usage of signs were really fucking awesome in this episode. Like the battle was awesome. Like he ended up lifting the curse. That was cool. The child was still fucked up, bit him in his neck. That
was a little weird. Did it kill him?
No, he just passed out. But I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean,
she
wasn't gonna wake up happy and smiling.
It tripped me out because it's like he just beat the fucking Striga. And this is basically just a 6-year-old kid.
Yeah, but he was
jump on him and bites the shit out of his neck.
But he was expecting a Striga to attack him.
Oh, I know, but you think he could just be like, kid jumps on me, he's like,
well, she got on him fast.
Fucking Geralt,
She got on him real fast, but
I just didn't see the point. Like narratively, I didn't get it. I mean, it just seems like it's
it just gave
he
him
gets woke up again. And it's like okay, great.
That's what it was. It gave him a reason to have that scene with Triss, right? Because she was the one that healed him and brought him back. Like if he had just healed her and whatever, he would have just walked out. He would have just left.
Yeah, but I mean, that's
so. I mean, it was,
dude.
but yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. Look at each other and just cut to the scene of him and Triss, and you would.
But there wouldn't have been
shit have worked out.
But there wouldn't have been that scene with him and Triss. That's what I'm saying.
They're just hanging out. She's
around. Why would he hang out? He would just go to the king, get his money, and leave.
Well, because she's the king's. She was there. It's like he's not going to talk to her. I mean, dude, please. It's like
no.
If your mom and dad come to see you play a football game, you're going to talk to them before the game's up. You know what I mean? It's like
no. He doesn't give a shit about Triss. Why would he talk to her?
Because he talked to her earlier in the episode.
Because he had to. She was the one that rescued him when he was getting kicked. Here's what I'm saying though. Like, it doesn't. The whole point of that conversation was Triss. So and it is again adaptation from the books. He was wounded in the books. He was nursed to health by some priestess or whatever who played really a more consequential role in Geralt's building his philosophy than anybody in the show did.
Oh,
but
they left her out.
Left her out or whatever. But anyways, so like the whole point was that. You saw Henry Cavill with the shirt off. You have to sprinkle those in where you can. That's why you got the guy. But also, you do get like she's talking to him about destiny, and you talked about this last time. There is a tremendous harping of destiny in this show. You know, like it's about.
I made a bigger point of that last time, and then you were like, "Well, the second book is called
the second
Sword
book
of
is called
Destiny."
The Sword of Destiny, so it doesn't fucking hide it
And
from
I was
you.
like, okay, well, maybe it's the books.